Welcome everyone. Reincarnation. Are we reborn again and again and again? Oh, absolutely yes. And how do I know that? Look at all life. Everything. Look at the tree. You cut the tree. You can make it into furniture. It's always recycled into books. And then when you burn it, ashes, and then you take the ash and you put it back into the soil again. So it's recycling. If you look at everything in life is recycled, the seasons, and everything is made from the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, ether. So are we. So we are part of all this. We're really one. We just have different vibrational fields. And of all, the human being is the most blessed. That's why it is in the scriptures, if you have a human body, it is the greatest blessing of all. And if you have a human body and a craving to learn who you really are, that's even a greater blessing. And if you have a human body and a teacher to take you there, even better. So we're the only ones in the body that can self-realize. Animals do come back again. Plants do come back again. We see that with the seasons. We see that so quickly. In the winter, my garden is no flowers and really very dry and so sad looking sometimes. And in the summer, we see all the colors popping in. And if you look at my garden now, you will see beautiful purple flowers, blue flowers, yellow and oranges started to come in. And they were all dead in the winter, and suddenly we see everything popping up again. And so it is with the human soul. What dies is just our body, nothing else. We never die. I'd love to read to you a poem by Rumi. It's one I've always loved. And it starts like this. Oh, by the way, Rumi was a great Sufi, 13th century Persian poet. And if you haven't read his works, please do. His poetry is dynamic and so incredible, whatever he says, and so truthful to life. I died a mineral and became a plant. I died a plant and rose an animal. I died an animal and I was man. Why should I fear? When was I less by dying? Yet once more I shall die as man, to soar with the blessed angels. But even from angelhood I must pass on. All except God perishes. When I have sacrificed my angel soul, I shall become that which no mind has ever conceived. Oh, let me not exist, for non-existence proclaims, to him we shall return. Now, some people may be very frightened to hear this. And you know, Charles Darwin talked about the theory of evolution. But if you just read history and see the truth, Earth started with one cell amoeba. And from that one cell, it evolved. And when they say we are co-creators with the divine energy or the creator, it just means that the consciousness, was not involved only in the creation. And as we evolve, we become the design. So when we create, we becomes God, what we call God or the universe, hands, mind, brain. Because how is it going to do its work without an instrument? Even as human beings, how do you cook food without a pot and pan, without the fire, without the instruments? So we are really instruments. And this is where we love St. Francis when he says, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there's darkness, let me bring light. We say, my master always said to me, no, not make me. You are an instrument of that peace, and you should, where there's darkness, bring light. This is our job. And how do we know this? Because all the sacred scriptures tell us of our journey into the non-existent. But then we cannot understand the non-existent, just as when we leave the earth, and if you see pictures of the earth, all you see is space, space, space. There's no more time. Can you really understand that? We can't. Scientists today are sending probes to Mars, and I'm very grateful to Les because he belongs to that website, and every morning he shows me these pictures of Mars. And you see, we don't know what other existence happens. So how can we think, if everything on this earth recycles, so do we? The Bhagavad Gita says, do not worry. The soul is not born, nor does it die. And just as we cast off old garments and throw them away or give them away to age concern, so then we cast off our bodies, and we get new ones. So what we're doing in this yoga practice is to perfect our action. And maybe we cannot, like Rumi say, come so quickly to that non-existence, which the Buddhists call everything and nothing. We really cannot understand it with the mind. And because we no longer exist at that point. This is why Swami Vivekananda, when he died, he proclaimed, he was thinking, I do not want to be born again to this life. As many of us feel, this life is painful, it's a hard life. I do not want to be born again. But at the end of his days, he said, take me wherever I'm meant to go, because I am eternal. So if I have to come back, let me come back, never forgetting the divine energy or the divine source, or what we call God, which doesn't seem to be such a good word today. I don't know why, but people don't seem to like that word anymore. So we use different fancy words to mean the same, that divine source or the creator. Because in order to have the creator, there has to be a creator. So reincarnation, we have had many, many, many lives. Otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here talking about spirituality. You will see young souls will be extremely materialistic or animalistic in their behavior. This is where you get all these murderers or people after greed, because they're really young souls and they just have, because animals, what do? And they go to the forest. I mean, the lion will eat what they have to eat for food, and there's no thought about it. So when humans behave that way, it is not acceptable. Because why? Because we've been given the gift of self-realizing, knowing who we are. And so in that case, we should behave as rulers of the jungle rather than creating more pain and more suffering. So as yogis, what are we working towards? I always say, buying insurance for a better life. You buy insurance for your house, which is at the end when you leave going to disappear, go to somebody else. We buy insurance for our car, which may have a crash, or we buy insurance for so many things. So this is, I call it spiritual. The work that we do is spiritual insurance. And I'd like to read to you something from the Upanishads, again guiding us always how to live so that we can reincarnate, if we have to, on this earth, and what we need to do to prepare for the next life. So let me read this, because I have so much to tell you about this such an interesting journey that we call life. And here, when body and mind grow weak, the self gathers in all the powers of life and descends with them into the heart. As prana leaves the eye, it ceases to see. He is becoming one, say the wise. He does not see. He is becoming one. He no longer hears. He is becoming one. He no longer speaks, or tastes, or smells, or thinks, or knows. And if any of you out with somebody who has been sick for a long time or a short time and leaving, this is the process. You know, I remember in my husband's last days, he says, I can't hear, I can't see so clearly, and taste was the first one to go, you know. And he's becoming one. He no longer speaks or tastes or smells or thinks or knows. By the light of the heart, the self leaves the body by one of its gates. So we leave our body when we go by one of our gates. What are our gates? Eyes, nostril, mouth, ears, anus, you know. Those are the gates of the body. So, and then when he goes, prana follows. What is prana? Prana is energy. Parashakti, we call it, supreme energy, or soul. The dynamic soul leaves with all of that. And with it, all the vital powers of the body. And the body starts. Because we've taken away the petrol from the body. The petrol is gone. The body starts to break down. He who is dying merges into consciousness. Merges. So where does that energy go? Into consciousness, right? Into space. It goes into consciousness. Accompanies him when he departs. So, not alone. It goes with it. The individual soul is there. Along with all the impressions of all that he or she has done, experienced, and known. And in yoga, we call this the chitta. What we have, yoga's chitta, vritti, nirodha, right? We say in yoga, what is your chitta, your consciousness? We are only conscious of this life. And I'll explain in a little while why. But the chitta, really, this consciousness has all our lives imbibed into it to give us this body, this personality, and what we need to learn from this life. You see, that's why we use the word chitta in Sanskrit, because there is no English equivalent to chitta. And it says, as a person acts, so he becomes in life. Those who do good become good. Those who do harm become bad. Good deeds make one pure. Bad deed makes one impure. You are what your deep driving desire is. As your desire, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. And this is why it says, what's your desires? What are you desiring? What are you thinking? Because as it is what you'll get. The universe will give you whatever you desire. Our Master Gurudev would say, is that if a man is thinking at the last minute, I need a cup of tea, and he dies, he'll come back and own a tea plantation. Or he's only all his life thought about food, and eating all the time, then he needs a pig's body to eat all the time. So be careful what your deep driving desire is. This is why when we talk about desire, is it wrong to have I feel like a cup of coffee? No. Or I feel like a cup of tea? No. But don't make it a craving. That's all. When it becomes a craving, it's in your mind all the time. So if it's in your mind all the time, it will stay in your mind at the moment of death. And what your deep driving desire is will give you a body to continue to grants desires and liberations, as we say in our mantra, right? Now you see how it all ties in? Everything ties in. Grants desires. See, the universe just wants to give us what we want, but it will not do it for us. We have to do it as instruments. So we live in accordance with our deep driving desire. It is this desire at the time of death that determines what our next life will be. We will come back to earth to work out the satisfaction of that desire. Now, many people think this is depressing. I think this is wonderful. That means we need to satisfy that desire. No, I can't have it. So sometimes if you really want something, you need to do it, suffer it, and then you'll know you don't want any more. And this is the type of desire we're talking about. This craving, this I have to have, I need, I need to go through this. Not wrong, go through it, let it go. Okay? And when you know you're going to have to let it go, and this happens with relationships, with everything, when it makes you suffer so much that you're tired. Isn't that incredible? How the divine is so kind to drive us so crazy so that we let go of the thing that's driving us the most crazy and we're still holding on to it. And when we get so fed up, we say, you know what, I don't want it anymore. So clever, don't you think? For me, this is so clever. The divine plan is so wise. But until we let it go, then it will give us a lot of problem if it's a craving. But not those who are free from desire. They are free because all their desires have found fulfillment in the self. The self. Now this is what we're doing, right? Yogas, chitta, vritti, nirodha, tada, drastue, swarupe vastanam. And then the seer abides in its own true self, its own true nature, which is divine, which is unmanifested, which is everything and everywhere. And if you understand that, then look what it says. They do not die like the others, but realizing Brahman, they merge into Brahman, meaning the divine source. They don't die like other people. They merge. And then they have the right to decide, become the creator and decide where they want to be in. Either come back, like Vivekananda say, or not come back. They can decide. And when all the desires that surge in the heart are renounced, the mortal becomes immortal. When all the knots that strangle your heart are loosened, the mortal becomes immortal. Here, in this very life. So here, this Upanishad tells us very clearly what will happen. Our desire will bring to us whatever we want in the next lifetime. So look at all of you. You must have done great things, because look where we are in this lifetime. And although we may think we had problems, really we do not. And even many of the people I meet that gone through horrible history like abuse and some of the stuff I've heard and rapes and all this kind of stuff. And even they are blessed in this lifetime when they come to the realization that they're in so much pain that they want to get out of that cycle of pain. They actually make a decision. I no longer want to be in this pain. Help. And they will ask for help at that point. And in my life, I have seen so many heal from abuse by forgiveness. But it takes years. It does not take overnight. It does take time. And this is what I tell them all the time. Don't believe that you just have one weekend away and it's going to solve the problem. Yes, one weekend away and you're going to feel a lot better. But you really have to work on yourself every day. And I'm really, really, really sure about this one. And I've seen people with problems when they do work on themselves. I have so many great examples. I could mention so many names of so many people in this room itself. And in the centers I've been in, who've followed this path and become great human beings in their own right and spread so much light in their own life, because they've healed themselves by working on themselves. This is our work, and this is yoga, to unite with the highest self constantly, constantly, constantly. So reincarnation. Do people come back? Do we remember? Well, if you've ever read a book by Brian Weiss, I don't know if you have, Many Lives, Many Masters, Same Soul, Many Bodies. It's really very interesting. He was a great psychiatrist who was really very skeptical about reincarnation and that these things really happen. But in his surgery, what happened was he took people back into time in their childhood, hoping to find out their problem. And what happened, as happened to me in some of my work, and I'll give you some nice stories, because for me it's so cool to see, oh my God, this is wonderful. People really slip into their past lives if they need to. I don't think we all should delve into past lives because you may not like what you see there. I always think if you're meant to know, you will know. But there are extreme cases, and I see Brian Weiss has taken some of these extreme cases where people automatically go into their past lives, and knowing what happened then helps them to understand who they are now. But if you are content with who you are now, don't waste any time. This life is more important. You really don't want to waste more times. I have some stories for it, and I have some stories against it. So once I had a young person who couldn't understand why, she always felt abandoned. She really felt abandoned. She felt nothing was, and so what happened to her, every time she had a relationship, it never worked because she felt she was going to be abandoned. And so anyway, she came to see me, and we looked back into this life, and I asked her, good parents, did they abandon you? No. Friends? Well, one or two friends, but everybody has that. In school, we all have friends that abandon us sooner or later. Normal. Nothing really big that she would have this great sorrow in her heart. So I said, come on, let me put you in deep relaxation, which I do for many, many people. And I said, I'll take you back in time. Maybe there's some trauma that you've forgotten, and something, maybe just left at the schoolyard and your mother hasn't picked you up and you're so small and you think she's so late that you're going to be abandoned. For children, this is really trauma, okay? So I thought could be something like this. So I took her back into time by letting her go back to 30 years old. She was describing what she saw, 20, what she saw, then going down to 10, what she saw. And she could see these images so clearly in her mind. And I remember her words after it, Melanie, I never bring up these memories, but they're all stored. I said, yeah, they're stored. They're really stored. But they're so clear. They even remember the clothes they were wearing. It's really cool. Or the room. Mostly it's their bedrooms that they see where they're crying a lot or suffering a lot. In abused children, it's always in the room, in the bed, right? So anyway, this has really been so helpful for me with my work. So took her back, and suddenly she was 2 years old, and I said, you're a baby. Where are you? And she goes, it's so dark and peaceful here. I said, where are you? She said, it's so peaceful. I'm floating. I said, great, you seem so happy. And then suddenly she goes, oh my God. And she's aware of all of this, okay? Her eyes are closed. I said, what's wrong? What do you see? And she says, there's a war going on. There's a war going on all around me. I've been injured. I'm going to die. And I said, who are you? She said, I'm a soldier, I'm a man. I'm not me. I'm a man, but I'm me. This is me. And I said, what's happening? She says, I'm going to die. But nobody's here. They're all walking away. Nobody's here to say goodbye to me. I don't want to die alone. I'm scared to die alone. Then I said, are you all right? Are you all right? I don't want to die alone. And I said, okay, let's take a deep breath and come back. Where are you now? Oh, I'm in that dark space. How do you feel? I'm so peaceful. It's so peaceful. It's so beautiful. I don't want to leave this space. And I said, okay, but I have to get you back to now. And so I brought her back to the room, back to where she was, got her to open her eyes. And of course, it's like hypnotism. In a way, she remembered everything. So she said to me, Nalini, what just happened? I said, you just tell me. You tell me what just happened. She said, I saw my past life. I wasn't sure that I believed in reincarnation, but I know now that was me. Great, you know now. Wow, so clear. Do you see, that's how I know it's truthful. It's so clear. And I said, what have you learned? She said, now I know where I get this feeling of abandonment from. So I said, but in this life, you've not been abandoned. No. So I said, you can let it go now. Let it go. That experience was so powerful that it stayed in your chitta for so long, because it's one of the worst experiences you had, that it filtered into this life. And after that, she was like, it's not happening in this life, it's done. I shouldn't be worried about it, should I? No, let it go. And so she let it go. She really let it go, because she realized, because she was always thinking there was something in this life, in this life. So all her mind was thinking, what happened in the past? Why do I feel like this? And when she got the answer, in that case, it came naturally, okay? I've had many experiences like that, but this was one story that really struck me as being so authentic. So you see, be careful what you ask for sometimes. When you want to have fun with certain things, you don't really need to know. Our master used to say, don't go there. There's enough with this life. You know, only go there when it's really, really going to affect yourself and going to help you in some way or the other. But if it isn't, if you're fine with this life, I know every curious human beings, we all want to know, but curiosity kills the cat. I think if you are meant to know, you will know. So this is reincarnation. This is my own learning. But like I said, other people, if you read Brian Weiss, I mean, there's lots of stories in there. There's lots of people who I've met recently, especially in the last 3 weeks. This is also very interesting because you will see the universe gives us everything we need to know about when the time is right. So funny enough, Les here, Anand, is writing a book on short stories, and his final story is, and it's fiction, but it's on reincarnation. And it's a story that teaches a lesson. Be careful what you look for. You never know what you're going to find. All his stories in this book are something like that. So anyway, in this story, he's asking me how I put people in deep relaxation, etc. In that particular week, as I'm talking to him, 4 of my patients came, all telling me they had visions of their past lives and their stories. Interesting, isn't it? And so I said, do you mind if I just tell Les, because he's writing the book, and it all, like in 1 week, and I came down and said, what's going on here? You know, are all the gods working for you to write this story? So I can give you all these examples. But the storyline was written, but he could fine tune it with reality, what was going on, you know. So this is interesting, and this is what I've learned about the universe. Whatever you need to know, if you really have trust and faith, and you really ask, boy, it comes tumbling in and gives you the answers. Buddha himself knew of, they say, is 500,000 lifetimes, 500,000 from animal to human. The Reader's Digest came up with a book many years ago called The History of a Reincarnation, written by Joe Fisher, but also studied by Dr. Ian Stevenson. It is a brilliant book. If you can get your hands on it, it is brilliant, because it shows you, they went to India, they went all over the world to actually try and see if this was really true, if reincarnation really existed, and they found out it did. I mean, the stories were incredible stories, and they even had photographs to show. And then they talk about reincarnation, group incarnation. We come into certain groups, we come into certain families. That's why I think we were family in many, many lifetimes, and we've come back together. And in this lifetime, we have decided that we want to live that life to elevate mankind. All of us have chosen this. And sometimes we forget what we've chosen because we get stuck in our own sorrow. We get stuck in our own pain, our own losses, our own fears. And then we get stuck. And then we can't see what we were given. We get stuck in our sorrow. But if you can just know about reincarnation, you won't get stuck in your sorrow, because you don't want to die feeling sad, because then you're going to come back and do it all over again. Oh my God, why would you want to? I tell people, don't. You don't want to do it all over again. You have this knowledge. Make yourself have a desire to be happy, at least, or at peace. So when you die, if you have that peace, at least the next body you will come, you will have the desire for peace, and you will have peace. But if you're in pain and you die, you cannot last minute decide, I'm going to be in peace, I want peace. It's just not possible, right? At last minute, you cannot do it. You have to do it now. So this is the practice for us. And so that the next reincarnation, you don't have to go through all this pain. And the pain is here for us to learn about non-attachment. Of course, nothing is ours, right? Why do you think in Sri Patanjali, the two important things he mentions is what? Practice and non-attachment. Practice, what do you practice? Steadiness of mind is practice. The effort you make, keeping your mind steady by reminding yourself, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And if you don't make it this time, don't worry. You have hundreds of millions and thousands of chances. And you'll come back again and again and again. But try and have a good life as you have had this one. Because this one is a really good one for all of us. We're not stuck we're not immigrants stuck on those boats and nobody wants you. You're drowning. We're not in Gaza being bombed at, or in Israel. We're not in these places. We're not in war zones where, oh my goodness, we're in the lap of luxury. So try not to focus on our pain, and try to focus on, wow, this lifetime I've been given so much. What can I do to give back to my world? What can I do to give back before I leave? How can I lift spirits? So for me, the theory of reincarnation is so amazing. And of course, I am sure many of you have met child geniuses. They're all over the internet. And how did they, at the age of 4, learn to be a concert pianist so brilliantly, or a brilliant mathematician at the age of 8 and 9, able to do sums like this? I mean, it can't be from this lifetime. And now, in this age, oh my goodness, some of my young students, my patients or friends, I call them my friends. The other day, I had a 10-year-old, and she's allowed me to tell a story. And her name is Ava, and I promised to send her this recording if I talk about her. She's 10 years old, and she's like, you know why she's getting panic attacks? Simply because she loves our world. She doesn't understand why human beings are not looking after our world, and why we are hurting animals. And then she goes to me, she says, I eat meat, and and I don't think it's right to eat meat, but I've told myself that the meat I'm eating is already dead, somebody's killed it, so at least I will love it. But I hope to educate the world to eat less. And I'm really trying to learn that for myself first. 10 years old. 10 years old. And then her mom said something to her like, this is going to happen in maybe 2 years. Mom, you don't tell me, a child of 10 years old, that something is going to happen in 2 years, because even 1 hour for 10 years old is too long. I just thought, this kid is cool. And and then she's telling her mother about, she lives in Gibraltar, And she loves being out in the country. And her mom has a caravan, thank God, so she takes her out weekends. And she was talking about loving to pick the plants and wanting to learn about herbal medicine so she could help the world. Then she said she wanted to learn about science too. A week before, I had a 12-year-old who wants to be a theoretical physicist so that he can help the world to become a better place. Where do these kids come from? How do have this? They have so much information. Then she's explaining to me about how to look at the shrubs, etc. And I'm going, I'm not speaking to a 10-year-old. I'm speaking to a 50-year-old, you know. And I'm fascinated. It's not even work, you know. So what I'm saying is I'm seeing now a lot of very young, old souls coming back. And I really, truly believe they've reincarnated to help our world, because obviously you've seen, oh, and then she talked to me about the Amazon forest. Do you know what they're doing in the Amazon forest? Do you know how they're killing the trees? They need to replant those trees. Do you know what mankind is doing to our oxygen levels? And I thought, whoa, yes, I said, I do know, but I'm so glad you're aware. I said, but it's no point panicking and getting upset about this. I want you to go through, study the subjects that are really brilliant for you to help the world, focus on them, don't worry about the ones that are not, and be co-creative, change our world to be better. Sitting here and getting panic attacks doesn't do anything for you or me or anybody. And she said, yeah, but my attacks are better now. It was my second time of seeing her. So quick. So much, much, much better now. Because why? She touched the spirit of why she was born already at the age of 10 to make a difference. And she's telling her mother, I want to, we need to, we all need to. And this other 12-year-old the same. And then I can tell you so many young people today. So once you know your mission, it's really kind of easy. But then life will give you lots of tests. And the secret is, and this is why I love the yoga studies, is tests come to us, not to scare us away and make us victims. Tests come to us to free ourselves of those fears. So as Susan Jeffers would say, you know, face your fear and do it anyway. Face your challenges, don't be afraid, you know. And the story I always love to tell about the bear going through the forest. When we hit a place like Arjuna, hit a place where he just couldn't move forward, he was frozen, and he's told, what are you, a coward? You've been given this job, just go ahead, you know. When we are frozen, we need to really remember we're much more than being frozen. Yes, you can't just be frozen and hope it'll go away. It's not going to go away. And the story of the bear is you can't go over the forest to get your honey, which is on the other side of the forest. You cannot go under the forest to get to the other side of forest to get your honey. You have to go through the forest. Bear, I know you're scared of the forest because it's dark and it's full of sounds and it's eerie and it's fearful. I know you're scared. Guess what? You have no choice if you want the honey. So the bear goes through the forest and gets scratched and hurt, but he keeps going, keeping that eye on that honey, that delicious honey, keeping it. This is soon going to be over. And of course, it gets over. It always does. Gets over. And when he came to the other side and he saw the green fields and the blue sky and the pot of honey, it was all worth it. It was all worth it. And this to me is why reincarnation is such a hopeful science. It is a science, and doctors are proving it now, and psychiatrists are proving it now, and we've always known it all the time. All the Eastern traditions and even the Western traditions, because if you look at Lord Jesus, and I wrote this down, he himself said about John the Baptist, he said to John the Baptist, you are Elijah, come again. You're Elijah, come again. What is he saying? You're born again, you're reincarnated. And Origen, who is one of the most learned of Christian fathers, said in the 15th century, every man received a body for himself according to his deserts in the former lives. What you didn't achieve, you come back to achieve this lifetime. And you find it all over Eastern philosophy as well. I mean, it's a brilliant subject and there's so many stories. But as my master would say, and I would leave you with this final thought. Why waste so much time on past lives? They're past. Focus on the present. Because it is on now. When we're not in our mind in the present, we slip into these what you call it, the data that is stored in our chitta. All this data is stored in our chitta. It's just data, and it's stored there. But our minds are so stuck with silly things that, of course, none of this data that is necessary for us will come through. Because it's so jammed with everyday feelings and anger and all this kind of stuff. So that's how I see. And keep it simple. I only know this in this body, and obviously I had this body for this life to do what I need to do. If I think about all those things, I can never get my jobs done. I wouldn't be able to look after my home. I wouldn't be able to look after my family. I wouldn't be able to look after my sangha, my patients, if I'm always thinking in the past. So I have no time. And say, if you are always thinking about your future and always worried about your future, how can you deal with today? If you're always saying, what's tomorrow going to bring? So all your time is spent on what tomorrow will bring, that you can't even focus on today. And I just think this is really what we're born here to do, focus on today. Good enough. Enough. And in today, you can get into that unconscious space that they spoke about. It's so peaceful. It's so quiet.